Welcome to Flourish in 5. My name is Heather Lawton, and every Friday I share a story, a lesson, or a quick idea with the goal of helping you gain a new perspective. If you could please share this episode with your friends or leave a comment, a review would be great. I would really appreciate it. In Tuesday's episode, that is 193, I talked about how I uncovered a few things from my childhood that have made a pretty big impact on me currently because they shed light onto certain types of behaviors that I exhibit. Now, in that episode, I'm talking about how I threw up on my desk in second grade, which is disgusting, I understand. But there were also a couple of other things that led to me creating a story or a narrative about who I was when I was a child. So when one thing happens to you as a child, it might not seem like a big deal, but when a series of things add up, you start to tell yourself a story about your identity and what that means about you. So I share that in that episode, and it's important to listen to that so that this makes sense. But essentially, the story I told myself growing up was that I was a bother, I was trouble, and I didn't really matter, that I was a problem maybe that had to be dealt with. And again, that's based on a series of things that happen. But as with everything in life, we make the meaning, we create these stories, we hold on to these stories, we believe in these stories, we find significance in these stories, and sometimes we refuse to change these stories. So now that I had this epiphany and I understand the story that I was telling myself and how that plays into my current behavior, it's just really helpful. But there's also another component to that. And that's that I believe many of the beautiful, strong aspects of our personalities are usually developed based on trauma or something that happened in our lives, even if you wouldn't describe it as traumatic. Essentially, we are built through our struggles. We're built from our trauma. So for instance, I became very independent at a young age because I felt like I had to, because I felt like when I was younger, I wasn't worth it. So if I was going to be worth it, I had to only depend on myself. Well, being independent is a fantastic quality, but there's also, I guess, the shadow side of where it came from. So the good comes with the bad. It's not that what happened to you was just all bad, because it made you into who you are. And there are some really good components of that. So for instance, I came into my young adulthood feeling very strong. And I think the reason I felt strong was because when I was a child, I felt very weak. So I was compensating for that. There's a part of me that when I am somewhere teaching or leading, I am occasionally, not always, because it depends on the environment, I'm occasionally the life of the party. And that characteristic is because at some point I felt unloved or not seen, and I'm trying to be seen and heard. I'm a very disciplined person, and that came from a place of feeling unworthy. So again, these are shadow sides that produce character and qualities of our personality that are actually really good. I consider myself a high achiever and very productive. And those qualities come from people who feel like at some point in their lives, they weren't enough and they have to prove themselves. Or a perfectionist, which I have those tendencies as well, probably at some point in their lives felt very out of control. And the way you control things is by trying to perfect everything so that you don't get any criticism. You might tell yourself, well, if I have everything perfect, then nobody will be able to say anything about it. I don't think you're saying that consciously. I think that's happening beneath the surface. So if you are like me in that you're the type of person who's like, I don't want to deal with the childhood crap. I don't really have time for it. I just want to improve and get better. It's actually really important to go through the exercise I described in the previous episode so that you uncover maybe some stories that you were telling yourself and that you have been believing and finding significance in for, I don't know, 2 decades, maybe 4 decades, a long time, and then not changing the story because you haven't acknowledged it. You don't even know it's there. You don't recognize it. So I uncovered the story, I found it, I recognized it, and I was like, whoa, that's so interesting. I didn't realize I was doing that, or my behaviors were based on that feeling of being unloved or not seen or not important. So I processed that for the previous week, through the previous week, and then I flipped it. And I said, whoa, okay, but look at what that produced. That produced independence, that produced strength, that produced humor and being funny. I approached things with a sense of humor that inspired my discipline because it came from feeling unworthy, but it now benefits me in my life, my productivity, and how I face my business all came from those experiences, which could be perceived as negative, or again, maybe you had something even more traumatic than that. But you can look at the qualities you have today and you can connect them to the beautiful, strong aspects of your personality because they're almost always developed based on those struggles. I hope I've encouraged you in these last 2 episodes to work through that exercise. Those questions are posted with the episode notes from 193 on Flourish.Academy. So check that out. It's worth working through, even if you feel like it doesn't matter or you don't want to deal with it. It's been really impactful for me. I hope that you found this useful. I'll see you in the next episode.